We're going to talk about now the masal of the Mamarim. We're starting with the Mamarim, Pasach Eliyahu and Baruch Nisim Tafshin Tesvav. So what I'll try to do in these few minutes is address shilas that came in, and including, but not limited to, what exactly we're doing for a month and a half, 2 months with two Mamarim, and all the Hisafis here, what's the Seder. So try to give some background to the Mamarim and the Hamshich Bichlal, and a derech, how to go through these Mamarim, and Be'ez Hashem over the next few weeks should be a davar hashalim. So just for a few minutes, so the Mamarim, Pasach Eliyahu and Baruch Shasa Nisim are Be'etzim part of a longer Hamshich, which the other Mamarim are brought here in the back of the Kovetz. It's the Hamshich of Chayref, the winter of Tafshin Tesvav. When you look in the Mamarim of the earlier years, I don't know if you can manage to say these words, but Be'etzim, in a way, it's almost the Rebbe's first Hamshich. And what I mean by that is that even before Tafshin Tesvav, obviously you have Hamshichim, right? The first Maimer that Rebbe said, Basi Lagani, Be'etzim had a Hamshich tit. Basi Lagani Tafshin Yud Aleph was on Wednesday. And then 3 days later, the Rebbe said a Maimer Sheves Bagani. But all the Hamshichim of the early years were like that. A Maimer that was said on Yom Tiv or Yom de Pagra, and a follow-up Maimer the following Shabbos. So Basi Lagani, Yesheves Bagani. V'nacha Yudalid, and then followed by, what's the next Maimer there? Al Shleisha Dvarim. Right, so usually, I believe the most that there is 2 Mamarim, and they're usually not even a week apart, they're less than a week apart. It's a Yom Tiv, in the middle of the week, and Shabbos following up. Which the Shabbos Fabrengens after a Yom de Pagra or Yom Tiv were sort of a shlama to the Yom Tiv Fabrengens. So it was one Maimer. A Hemshech, as the Rebbeim, the Rebbe would always say that it starts by the Rebbe Marash, and obviously, but the Rebbe Rashab had the long Hemshechim. This Inyan of Hemshechim of for a few Chadashim, cooking in one Inyan in Mamarim. So Be'etzem, the first one is Pasach Eliyahu, which Be'etzem doesn't start by Pasach Eliyahu. It starts, the first Maimer is Simchas Torah, B'yem HaShmini Atzeres. That's the first Maimer. The last Maimer brought over here is Mevarchim Achodesh Shvat. So we're talking about Be'etzem 3 months, from the end of Tishrei till the end of Tevis. Over 3 months, 5 Mamarim. There was one Maimer in the middle that wasn't part of the Hemshech, and that's not put in here. But Be'etzem 5 Mamarim, this Hemshech. From these 5 Mamarim, 2 of the Mamarim are Mugeh, Pasach Eliyahu and Baruch Shasa Nisim. Now, the Hemshech is even clearly about the Sugya of Das Elyon and Das Tachtin. Now, Das Elyon and Das Tachtin are a great Sugya in Chassidus. And in these Mamarim, the Rebbe is Mechadish, Chidushim Nifloim, in the Sugya of Das Elyon and Das Tachtin. And to understand what we're trying to do over here, what we're trying to do with these Mamarim, I want to talk about Bechlal, the Indian of Melukit, the Rebbe's Mamar Bechlal, and Melukit Befrat, and Vitzu Lernin. So, even clearly, the Rebbe's Mamarim, right? Anyone that, I'm sure everyone here has learned the Rebbe's Mamarim, and Mugeh, and Dulti Mugeh. The Rebbe's Mamarim, even clearly, are very, very much Bekitzer. In a way, as the Rebbeim, every doyer, the Rebbeim would be Meirich in Chassidus, right? The Mamarim would be, obviously, from the Alter Rebbe to the Mittel Rebbe, from Chachma to Bina, and then in the later doyers, the Rebbe Rashab, the Friedrich Rebbe, the Mamarim are very much Barichis and Bebir. The Rebbe, so in the Sichis you had that long biur, but in the Mamarim, in a way, it was farkert. The Rebbe's Mamarim, even Klali, are very bekitzer. That's even the Mamarim, the way the Rebbe said them, biyachas to the earlier Rebbe. But the Mugeh Mamarim are even more bekitzer. The Mugeh Mamarim, everything is very, very bekitzer. And every sif, in a way, almost every line, there's a ribu inyanim here. So an Inyan that, in a Maimer that it's meyusad on from a previous Rebbe, is mamish a few pages or a few Mamarim, and the Rebbe's Maimer can mamish be in a few lines. Why? Because the word of the Rebbe's Maimer, you see this in many Mamarim, and in a way you could say that these Mamarim, Pasach Eliyahu, Baruch Shasa Nisim, are somewhat representative of Melukit Bichlal. The Rebbe's Mamarim do a few things. Number one, they're Misakim, Sugyas of Chassidus. So you can have one Maimer, it's Misakim, a few Sugyas, very, very bekitzer and meduyik, very concise. Number 2, they give Hagdaris. Right, so you have, not only it takes many pages of Chassidus and brings it into 1 page or a few lines, it will be magdir things, very, very clear definitions to things. And even after you learn a few mamarim in Ayin Beis and Samach Vav, as L'mashal negate to this maimer, but if someone would ask you, give a hagdara to this topic, give a hagdara, L'mashal brought in this maimer, then you have Ratzin, give a hagdara to Ratzin, give a hagdara to Chaymer and Surah, you might be a bit lost, and the Rebbe's Amar will have in a few lines, a very clear hagdara. That's number 2. So there's Kitzer, Sikum, hagdara, and then the third thing, maybe the biggest Chiddush, you could say in the Rebbe's Amarim, is this Nekudah of Chiddush. Then the Rebbe's Amarim, there's major Chiddushim in Inyanim in Chassidus, meaning you have the Sugyas in Chassidus that are brought by all the Rebbeim, and obviously each Rebbe was Moisif and Mechadish and explaining things differently, but even Klali, there's a certain Mahalach, the general Mahalach that you see in Chassidus Bichlal. And the Rebbe, it could be in one Maimer, it could be in a few Maimerim, the Rebbe in a Maimer is Mechadish in the Sugya, a totally new mahalach, a new havana in the ganze sugya that you possibly don't see before. But because everything's written so bekitzer, so sai the havanas hadvarim and sai the hagdaras hadvarim, and maybe most importantly the chiddush sometimes gets lost because what was said before, what's the chiddush, man ishtane, what are we actually trying to accomplish here? Uvemela, so. You know, people learn the Rebbe's Amar, you can learn the Rebbe's Amar very, can learn it very quickly. It's a minig, you get up on Shabbos and you can't daven on Shabbos before learning a Maimer. So you find the Maimer, you finish the Maimer somehow in an hour. And the Rebbe's Amar, especially the Mugadik Amar, they read very well, they read very easy. But not necessarily versteht the ganze Inyan. So another reifin is that you listen to Shiurim. So there's Shiurim on the Maimer, and it's always a davar mevurech to listen to Shiurim. And the shiurim, so you'll have a background brought, and the magchir will find that it could be a chiddush and also be mevaret, etc., etc. And there's a riba shiurim available, and they give out, and in the drive there's all these shiurim. But what we're trying to do over here is something is a shtikla under a kav. Or betzem, learn the maimer yourself. Which sof that's the Indian from Limud Chassidus, and especially Limud Chassidus Chabad, there's ein eigene, that to learn the Maimer with the background needed. So what we have over here is there's the 2 Mamarim, Pasach Eliyahu and Baruch Hashem, and the 2 Mugadik Mamar. Then in the back there are the other 3 Mamarim, the Bilti Mugger, the first 2 Mamarim, the Hemshich, which are from Simchas Torah and Shabbos Bereshis. Then there's the 2 Mugadik Mamarim, and then the final Maimer, which is Parshas Ve'era, Tavshin Tesvav. Then in the middle you have here some Amarim from Samach Vav and Ayin Beis. These Amarim from Samach Vav and Ayin Beis, the Samach Vav Amarim are going to get to both Amarim, especially Pasach Eliyahu. And then the Maimer from Ayin Beis is bigger the Benegeh to the second half of the first half of Baruch Shasa Nisim. Besides for that, I believe here in the back there are a few pages, a list of Mari Mekoimis that take you through the Maimer, first general Mari Mekoimis to the Sugya, and then different Mari Mekoimis negate to different Sifim in the Sugya, in the Mamarim, explain topics, Derech Meil, Derech Islabshus, Sabas and Chayus, Chemer Tzura, Rotzin, Yechoilis, etc., etc. And then the second Maimer is of Primis, of Kutzoyin, Chachma Bina, things that are Moisef beer in these inyan. Now, Bachram asked how to learn and which Seder to learn. So I would say, even Kloli, I think there's now, Bez Hashem, we're learning this till Yutis Kislev. I would say that there's 2 mahalchim. Either start with samach, learn the samach vav mamarim first, and then go to these mamarim, and this is not either or. He goes to do both. Or do the first 2 mamarim of Tavshin Tesvos. That way you learn the hemshech ala seder. The maimer of the 2 mamarim of samach vav, which are both from Parshas Harbi Chukois, one from samach vav, one from samach zayin. So the 2 mamarim are negate to the klolos. The entire chelik brought from Samach Vav and Samach Zayin are negate to the Mamarim here. They explain the Sugya of Das Oni Das Tachnas. We'll get to in a few minutes. The Mamarim of Tavshin Tesvav, so they're connected to this Sugya, obviously, and there's a build-up. But there's a lot of Inyanim in the Maimer that are shtickle, they're not directly related to understanding Pasach Eliyahu Baruch Shasa Nisim, and you might get lost in that a bit. So if you want to get straight to the Maimer, I would say Be'ikir, the first in Simchas Torah Maimer, the first 2 Sifim, and in the Bereshis Maimer, weiter, the first 2 Sifim. Betzim, the first 2 Sifim of both Mamarim are in a way a sikum of the Mamarim in Tafresh Samach Vav, the Sugya that's only Das Tachtin, and then you can get the Pasach Eliyahu. But if you have the time, you can do the first two Ma'amarim, more Legirsa, of the Hamshich Tesvav, and then go to the Mugdik Ma'amarim, then Adrabah. So that way you learn the Sugya, the Hamshich Allah Seder. Now, when you get to the Ma'amarim Pasach Eliyahu Barshas Nisim, so the Sugya is Das Elin Das Tachtin. Right? It's B'ayvin Klali, the Sugya Geit Azay. We know there's Das Elin Das Tachtin, which Pasha translated, there's two perspectives. So a higher perspective, a lower perspective. There's a perspective from above and a perspective from below. Now, where are these Das Elin Das Tachtin? So this Chassidus said Barich is that there are a few ways to look at it. On a Pashta level, Das Elin is wie der Eibishter guckt das Sachen. Das Tachtin is the way we look at things. And what's the difference between Das Elin and Das Tachtin? So Chassidus says like this: in Das Elin is L'maylo Yesh U'Lamata Ayin. In Das Tachtin, L'mata Yesh U'Lamaylo Ayin. Yesh means what's a mitzias? What's the true mitzias? What's the given mitzias? What's the pashta mitzias? So L'maylo it's not the Eibush there, it's not the Likus. So L'maylo Yesh, Ruchnius, a Likus, Eibush there. That's the Yesh Amiti. Everything else is Ayin. Which means doesn't really... Now, okay, we'll get in a moment to what exactly ayin means, but even on this very simple level, that's not the true mitzias. Mashenkin by us, by us, the simple reality, the accepted reality, the intuitive reality that we have is l'matza yesh, the reality we live in. U'lamayla ayin, that, it's ayin, it's not really there. We have to make it exist. We have to think about it and bring it into our frame of reference, and frame of existence. But then Chassidus brings the pasuk that says Kel Deis Havaya, and Chassidus learns what's the pshat Kel Deis Havaya. Kel Deis Havaya is that by the Eibishter in Kel Deis Havaya, even Havaya, even the Eibishter himself is Kel Deis. The Eibishter is an Eibishter of Deis, of two opinions, meaning that these two Deis, it's not just Elyon and Tachtin, our opinion and our perspective and his perspective, but he himself has two perspectives. The Eibishter has Dasa and the Eibishter has Das Tachtin. And then Chassidus goes weiter and says, just like the Eibishter has 2 days, so we are a reflection of the Eibishter, so we also have 2 days. Right? So there's two inyanim in the Avodah Sa'adam, which connect to Yichud Tata and Yichud Ilah. Yir Tata, Yir Ilah, 2 ways the way a Yid can connect to the Eibishter. The Rebbe has a Meir Dikavart in one of the Hadranim, Al Rambam, in the later years, from when the Rebbe started the kind of Limud Rambam, so there was a Hadran every year. Before that, there was 1 or 2 Hadranim before, but from Memdal and Non, Memhei, there was a Hadran every year. And Kemat every year, the Rebbe would speak about the first 2 halachas in Rambam. And then the second halacha is Vimyal Aladah Shoinei Matzah. And the Rebbe would always ask the Shaila, Vimyal Aladah Shoinei Matzah. And the question was always in different ways, but sometimes it was, is it shaykh that a yid would think any matzah? As far as Shvar does. Or the question is, im yala ladas? This is an aliyah bedas. It's the biggest tipshus. I can think ain't any matzah. There's no ebish there. Right? So many different shaylas and many different biyorim. One of the adranim, the Rebbe said Amer Dikavart, that there can be a yid that learns the first halacha in Rambam. That there is an ebish there. The Yisraeli says, right? The ebish creates everything. And yet, after and comes from him, everything is totally in the Eibishter. He knows halacha aleph. He learns halacha aleph. Maybe he even learns with all the hadranim and all the sichis, all the biyurim that are in halacha aleph. And even after he finishes halacha aleph, he comes to halacha beis. He's still in a state of im yala ladas shu'einei matzah. He still thinks not im yala ladas that he forgets halacha aleph and now he might think einei matzah. No. He knows halacha aleph and still yala das shehu einei matzah. Why? Because the Eibishter he has, his relationship with the Eibishter that he has from halacha aleph is an Eibishter that's mamtzi kol nimtza. An Eibishter that the entire world is dependent on the Eibishter. Meaning he sees the Eibishter through the world. So the world exists. Through his acceptance of the world's reality, how can the world be here? There's an Eibishter. So his relationship to the Eibishter is only through the world. But Ya'al Dashu Einei Matzui. But is the Eibishter Matzui? Is the Eibishter a true and inherent existence? Somebody that's pushed by him, just like we know there's a table here, that the sky is blue. No, Ya'al Dashu Einei Matzui. He knows Halacha Aleph and still Ya'al Dashu Einei Matzui. Comes Halacha Beis and says, you have to elevate You have to grow up, and from Das Tachtin move on to Das Elyon. Right? So that's Das Elyon in a person's reality. But it starts with the Eibishter, that the Eibishter has 2 days, Das Elyon, Das Tachtin. Now, where are Das Elyon, Das Tachtin? So this is Chassidus Iberal Seretzich, that Be'etzem, they exist in different dargas in Elikus. Right? So you'll see this in Samach Vav, and you'll see this in the earlier Mamarim in Tavshin Tesvav, where we discuss Das Tachtin in Biyah, Das Elyon Atzilus, Das Tachtin in Atzilus, Das Elyon higher than Atzilus. In the Kav, in Chetzenis HaKav, in Pnimis HaKav, we discuss different ways of, how do we see that both of these days exist in Elikus, but they're on different levels. And comes Chassidus and says that even though we say Das Elyon and Das Tachtin, 2 different perspectives, so Ba'ifin Klali, okay, so if there's 2 perspectives, which perspective is right? Comes Chassidus and says, Shtei Adayis Heim Emes. Both days are true. Right? Obviously, if it exists in Elikus, then both days have to be true. There's no level in Elikus. Chas v'sholom, it's not Emes. Shtei Adayis Heim Emes. But Chassidus goes even deeper and says that even if, when we understand Das Elyon, Das Tachtin, Das Elyon is the Eibishter's perspective, Das Tachtin is our perspective, even then we say Shtei Adayis Heim Emes. The fact that the Eibishter makes us see things Momato L'maylo, that itself has a truth to it, but that's not so much brought in this sugya, it's brought in other Ramarim. Across the board, Shtei Adayis Heim Emes. So this is the Bechlal, the Sprach brought in Shtei Adayis Heim Emes. In our Mamarim, the Rebbe basically goes in this kav of Shtei Adayis Heim Emes, but the way the Rebbe learns Shtei Adayis Heim Emes is very different and very mechudish b'yachas to the way it's learned Bechlal in Chassidus Shtei Adayis Heim Emes. Because even after Chassidus says that Shtei Adayis Heim Emes, Chassidus comes and says, and this you see in the second Maimer in Samach Vav, this is from Im Chukayset Eleichu Samach Zayin, Shtei Adayis Heim Emes, but in Emes there's different levels of Emes. There's Sfas Emes, there's Emes, and Emes Lamite, right? We know this from time. Sfas Emes, Emes Lamite. So there's different layers in Emes. So even Klali, so Chassidus comes and says like this: Das Tachtin is Sfas Emes, Das Elyon is Emes. Some say Retzich Afilu the of Emes Lamite exists in Das Elyon. Usually Emes Lamite is higher than Das Elyon. So there's different layers of Emes. So is it all true? Yeah, but there are layers and levels to this truth. Because ultimately, Das Elyon comes from a higher level in Elikus. What are these how do these 2 levels work in Elikus? What does it mean? Right? How could Elikus say Lamata Yesh or Lamayla? Maybe by us, Lamata Olam Hazeh is a reality that we live with every day, and Elikus is sort of ayin. It's out there, right? It's not really relevant or part of our life. It's not something that we can understand. But how do we say Lamata Yesh Lamayla Ayin Elikus? So first of all, so Bezeh Gufe, right? So soon I'm going to get to the Chiddush here in the Mamorim of what's the Pshat Shtei Adayis Heim Emes. I'm going to go back for a minute and say, okay, what is this Lamayla Yesh, Lamata Ayin, and Lamata Yesh, Lamayla Ayin, and Elikus? So Chassidus says like this: the Be'etzem, whenever anything that exists in this world, where you have one existence and it turns into a different existence. So it speaks the mashal about there's the koyach hayilada, right? So there's the parent and then there's the child. There's the garin, there's the seed that's put into the ground, and then there's the thing that grows, there's the fruit that grows, etc. So whenever one mitzias turns into another mitzias, so between yesh and a yesh, there has to be an ayin be'emtza. This is it's a klal across the board. Of course, in Seder Shtalshus, but you see this in Elam Hazeh, right? Whenever from one mitzias to another mitzias, you can't just evolve. Evolution, Ilava only exists where it's one reality that just semi-evolving, right? Slight shifts and changes in its tzura. But when you're actually changing the choimer of a thing, the etzem mitzias of the zach, there's an ayin be'emtza, meaning the first mitzias has to cease to exist, and then the new mitzias can exist. So between yesh and yesh, there's ayin be'emtza. So when we say that in Elikus that l'mayla yesh l'mata ayin, l'mata yesh l'mayla ayin, so we say like this: that there's a yesh l'mayla, that's the yesh amiti, that's the Eibishter, that's atmos umhos. There's the yesh l'mata, that's the yesh hanivra, our existence. And then there's the ayin be'emtza. What's the ayin be'emtza? So the ayin be'emtza is everything in between atzmos, yesh amiti, and Elam Hazeh, yesh hanivra. There's ayin be'emtza. All those levels of oyer, all of Seder Yishtalshus, all the spheres, it's all ayin. Now, so the shaila is, which yesh are we looking at? So if we learn it that way, there's one ayin in the middle, And then there's, okay, so which yesh are we starting from? Are we starting from the yesh ha'amiti, from atzmos, and then the ayin, and from there you go into the oir, and everything that comes after that, and then the world that's created, everything else it comes after the yesh. Or the starting point is olam hazeh, the yesh and nivra, and then there's the ayin that's above it, the ayin which is the chayis aleki, the oir, all the oiris l'mayla. Now, then comes and says, really, it's not yesh ayin yesh, it's yesh ayin ayin yesh. The ayin is split into two. The ayin is split into two. Now, meaning, ayin includes all the levels of ishtalshlus, all the levels of the oyer chayis aliki. Somewhere in the middle of Seder Ishtalshlus, there's a split, and then we have ayin and ayin. Where is that split? That in Chassidus is a ganze sugya, especially in the Hemshich, Yud Tafshin Yud Aleph, which is the Hemshich that came from was printed from the Rebbe from Tafrish Tzadik Dal. The Rebbe printed after the Stalkos in the Chayr of Tafshin Yud Aleph from Rosh Hashanah till the Sima Miras Kaddish. That's almost till Yud Shvat. That was the Hemshich the Rebbe gave out from Tafrish Tzadik Dalid, which is connected to this Hemshich, because this Hemshich of Tafrish and Tesvav, even Klali, is Miyusid. The general Yisoid for this Hemshich is the Hemshich from Hemshich Ayin Beis, Tishrei Tafrish Ayin Vav. There are a few Mamarim. The Friedrich Rebbe had a Hemshich, Tafrish Tzadik Daled, printed in Tafshin Yud Aleph, that's an Arichus based off the Hemshich from Tafrish Ayin Vav. But that Hemshich was cut off in the middle. It was a whole story. The Friedrich Rebbe was saying the deepest Tafrish Tzadik Daled. He was in Poland. It was a very, very deep Hemshich. It was gekum mitainis as the Ilum versteht nicht what's going on. So the Hemshich was literally cut off in middle, and the cutoff point in our Hemshich is really, if you look over here in the Maimer of Simchas Torah, towards the end of Sif Gimel, some of the first Maimers where the Hemshich, the Friedrich Rebbe cuts off. Right, so the Friedrich Rebbe's Hemshich is a long, 50 pages, maybe even more. And that's just the first few pages of the Hemshich of the Rebbe over here. It speaks about the three levels of Bittul of Oyer and stops there and doesn't get to the next level. That's just Maimer HaMosker. Balkoponim, so there in the Friedrich Rebbe speaks about Riches, this Inyan of the three, of where is the cutoff point between Yesh, the Ayin, the higher Ayin, and the lower Ayin, which in Chassidus vernacular is the Ayin of the Yesh HaAmiti and the Ayin of the Yesh HaNivra. So Yesh, Ayin, this Yesh is associated with the higher, this Ayin is associated with the higher Yesh. Then there's the ayin of Yesh HaNivra, which is associated with the lower Yesh. Is the cutoff point the Tzimtzum? Is it Vayetzilis? Whatever. There's different ways of understanding where the two. But the point is that we split the ayin into two, and the first ayin is connected to the first Yesh, and the second ayin is connected to the lower Yesh. Why is this ayin? Why are these levels more connected to Atzmos, and this level connected to Olam Hazat, Yesh HaNivra? And so this is Betzim Levar. And this will also explain how do we say in Elikus, how could there be a level in Elikus, a deya in Elikus, that Lamata Yesh or Lamayla Ayin? It sounds absurd. The Eibush there sees the world as a Metzias and himself as a non-existence. Right? Nerva then, the difference of the higher Ayin, the lower Ayin, the higher Ayin is a level in Oyer that's totally Davuk to the Moyer, connected to the Eibush there himself, and its whole Metzias is Bittul to the Eibishter, to Atzmos. Yeah, if it's the oyer legalos atzmosei, if it's the oyer hakol b'moyer, whichever level we speak of, we're talking about an oyer that his whole mitzias is ayin, and so in that case, what does ayin mean? So ayin of the yesh amiti and the word ayin of yesh hanivra mean two different things. The ayin of yesh amiti, why is it called ayin? Because of its bittul, it's bottle to the yesh amiti. That's the higher level of ayin. The lower level of ayin, the ayin of Yesh HaNivra, why is that called ayin? That's called ayin because it is, you can't say because, you say it's totally bottled to the Yesh HaNivra, the Likus is bottled to the Yesh HaNivra. The Yesh HaNivra exists only because the early key is in it, the Chayis is the key is in it. So here we say that why is ayin called ayin? Here Chassidus brings a few biurim. One biur is ayin miloshin loy davar, or ayin, that it's einei musig. The word ayin here means ayin biyachas to the Yesh HaNivra. it's non-existent. It's a different form of existence than the Yesh HaNivra. It's not Gashmi. And it's not understood in the world of Gashmi. Meaning, it's ayin biyachas to us. It doesn't really exist in our frame of reference and of existence. Why does Elikus see things? If it's only ayin because we see, because it doesn't make sense to us, we don't understand it. So why does Elikus itself? Why is it called ayin in Elikus? And that's spoken about in the Mamarim, because in that level of Elikus, the whole toichin of those levels in Elikus is to mechaya olam hazeh. It's keilu. We could say tuffle, but his whole inyan, why is there Sfiras HaMalchus? Why is there the Chayes that comes into this world in order to give this world existence? So in a way, it comes after this world, because there's a world, therefore there's that level of Chayes. Fine, and that's explained here in the Mamar. So L'mayla Yesh L'mata Ayin, and L'mata Yesh L'mayla Ayin, the 2 days in Elikus. Now, these 2 days are true, because there's different levels, as I said. There's the Yesh and the Ayin, the higher Ayin, which is higher levels in Elikus, and then there's the Ayin of below, the ayin of Yesh HaNivra, and then the Yesh HaNivra, which is down here. They're both emes because they're both in Elikus. In these Mamarim, the Rebbe basically comes and explains that the 2 levels are emes, it's not 2 layers of emes and 2 different dargis. This, that there's Das Elyon, Das Tachtin, where does it come from? It's both expressions of Ein Sof. There's one way of looking at it, this is that Tzilas and higher than Tzilas. Before this is after it. So here we're saying, Das Elyon and Das Tachtin are both expressions of Ein Sof. That's what it is. Ein Sof expresses himself in 2 different ways. So Lefiza Kumt, I don't say it clearly, but Lefiza Kumt, it's not 2 different layers of emes. Here, with the way the Rebbe learns that it's Shtei Desim emes, they're both on equal footing. They're both emes lamiti. They're both expressions of Ein Sof. The Rebbe goes noch different. Not only both expressions of Ein Sof. In Ein Sof Fart, there's 2 kavod. So the Rebbe goes deeper. That they're both expressions of Yecholos HaAtzmos. Yecholos HaAtzmos, this is the last sif Pasach Eliyahu, and a bit in the next mimer. In Yecholos HaAtzmos, when we said that Eibishter has Yecholos Lahoyer and Shaloi Lahoyer, it's not 2 different expressions. Yecholos means he's Kol Yochel, he can do anything. Included in that is Lahoyer, Shaloi Lahoyer, and a billion other things. So there's one Nekud of Yecholos. So mitzad that Nekud, these 2 days are be'etzem one. So what does that mean practically? So here are the 2 Amorim, Pasach Eliyahu and the Baruch Shasa Nisim. Pasach Eliyahu tries to bring out the point that Das Tachtin is just like Das Elyon. Just like Das Elyon, we understand it to be Koydem HaTzimtzum, an expression of Ein Sof. It's the truth of the Eibishter, the way the Eibishter is for himself, and not the way the Eibishter relates to this world. Das Tachtin as well, which seemingly is the way the Eibishter relates to this world and is already after a tzimtzum, and it's not the Eibishter the way he is for himself. Das Tachtin as well, because it's mushrish and Ein Sof, Das Tachtin as well is an expression of the Eibishter the way he is for himself without shaychus to this Welt. As explained in this Mayim. Comes the Rebbe in the second Mayim, Baruch Shasa Nisim, and says the Farkerta Vart, which in a way is even a bigger chiddush. L'chayra, what's the big chiddush here? That even Das Tachtin is like Das Elyon. Comes the Rebbe in the second Mayim and says, what we're going to do now is we're going to revisit Das Elyon. The first Mayim the Rebbe revisits Das Tachtin. In the second Mayim the Rebbe revisits Das Elyon. Then now we'll understand Das Elyon. If in the first Mayim it seemed we're trying to get Das Tachtin to the same level as Das Elyon, now we're saying no. It's a totally new avana in what Das Tachtin is and Das Elyon is. Das Elyon is because the Eibishter wants it. Just like Das Tachtin is an expression of Ein Sof, the Eibishter wants to express himself in a way of Das Tachtin. In the second Mayim we say that Das Elyon as well, the Eibishter wants to express himself in a way of Das Elyon. The nafkeminis, now the way that Rebbe does this, and this you see in these Mamarim, this is the style I'm going to look at, I'll finish in 2 minutes, is that the way that, okay, you got the Vart, move on. The way that Rebbe gets to this Chiddush, which is the greatest Chiddush in Chassidus, there's many different sort of semi-sugyas here. There's the sugya Das Elyon Das Tachtin, there's the sugya of Nes and Teva, Ishavas v'derech Meilin, Ishavas v'derech Slabshus, on Sif Gimel. Come Sif Hey, Vav, you have the sugya of Ishavas and Chayas. Zayin, you have the sugya of Chaymer and Surah. Ches, Tes, the sugya of Rotzin and Dibur. And then the Rebbe brings together these many different sugyas and proves from the way these sugyas come together this new Havan and this new Mahalach. And in the next Maimer, the Rebbe speaks, the first half of the Maimer is about Chochmah and Bina, the Kesher of Chochmah and Bina, and learning the sugya of Chochmah and Bina, how it connects to Das Elyon, Das Tachtin, according to different Mamarim, And through that, the Rebbe comes to this beer of a different Havana in Das Elyon. Then later in the Maimer, the Rebbe speaks about different Ifanim and Nissim. So very, very not much different in the Yonim, will come together in these Mamarim, but all to bring out this Nekudah, a new Havana in Das Tachlin, a new Havana in Das Elyon, that come from a deeper Havana in Shtei Deis Emes. It's finished with the Indian, this whole Indian is a Shikul Yonah Diyema, the Shkacha Pratis. So that's in these Mamarim, the Rebbe said Tafshin Tezvav, the Rebbe gave out these two Mamarim in Tafshin Nun Aleph in the winter. The Mamarim in the winter of Tafshin Aleph, the Rebbe gave out Kama Mamarim, the Kesher to the Sugya of Nissim and Teva and Das Elyon, Das Tachtin. And that's in the, it was clear, the Rebbe was giving it out, there was connection to the Matzav then, which was Melech Arvi, Miskar Melech Aram, that was Mamish right before the Gulf War started. The Maimer Baruch Shasa Nissim, Tafshin Tezvav, is meyusid on the Maimer, the Rebbe is invited the Maimer of Baruch Shasa Nissim Tafri Samach Daled. So here, the print, this is from the new Melukit, it doesn't finish off here. You look in the old Melukit, so it says there, the Yudis Kis Tafri Samach Daled, the Maimer Yotze Lo'er, Yud Shvat, Tafshin Nun Aleph. The Maimer Baruch Shasa Nissim Tezvav, the Rebbe published it for Chanukah before the Maimer Baruch Shasa Nissim was ever printed. It was printed Eresh a month later, and the Rebbe gave it out to everybody. Yud Shvat was in the middle of the war. The Rebbe gave out the Maimer Baruch Shasa Nissim. That was one of the, right. The Rebbe was giving out Kuntreisim of Chassidus. The Rebbe gave out the Maimer a month and a half later. When the Maimer originally came out, it said Yudis Kis Tafshin Samach Daled. Loy Nitpas Adain, or you have to find the original Kuntris that was printed. It says over there Loy Nitpas or Nimtza B'Tfus. So the Rebbe's Maimer came out before the original Maimer was ever printed. And the Mamar Basha came out at that Kufeh, and Seretzich with this Indian, the Eivishter, by the Eivishter, Betzim Nes and Teva are all one, and therefore Nissim can mean a Slavish in Teva, and Sai Nissim and Sai Teva are the Fid Ritzoyne Yispari, the Ratzon of the Eivishter. As the Rebbe finishes the second Maimer, that the Bakasha is by the Eivishter, that Shasa Nissim is Manazeh, you see on page 19 in the Kuntris, right? That came out in Aleph. Shiur bias Mashiach Tzidkeinu shgam Nissim Elu Yub Zman Hazeh Bas Dakarev Mamish v'bias Mashiach Tzidkeinu b'mheira v'yomeinu Mamish. Upon Allah having asachat slacha, there's said that there's different shiurim available, and will be shiurim, but b'ikir we should learn through that. It's very geshmak hemshich Tafshin Tezvav, and the Mamarim Samach Vav and Ayin Beis, and you see over here the Mamarim Mekaymis and L'Zayin B'Hatzlacha Rabbah.